Welcome to the Nerd Enthusiast Gaming Podcast, where today we're going to be discussing us. Wes and I have worked in video games for quite a while, in retail stores, EB Games, GameStop. Wes still works at a retro video game store now, and we've moved on to, we're creating content on the internet for gaming. So we're going to be discussing all those things, how we got there, our passion for it, our love for it, how we got the job, and make recommendations on how you can possibly get a job in the video game industry. Before we get into those things, just a very quick bit of housekeeping. Make sure you guys follow us on social media at Nerd Enthusiast, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those things. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. That definitely helps us out. And if you can and would, we definitely appreciate the help over on Patreon, patreon.com/nerdenthusiast. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. That dollar will get you exclusive content. The $5 tier will actually get you early ad-free access to all of our podcasts. So if you like what you hear, please consider supporting us over there. Wes, let's bring things back to the beginning. And I mean before we even got a job working with video games.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the passion start for you for games? What made you want to work and be around video games?
Okay. But my once upon a time, if we're going all the way back,
Go back.
It was I was young. I was a kid. I always, for some reason, was attracted to video games. My family had the Magnavox Odyssey, which was the early Pong games for the television, and then
Oh man, that's the OG, Wes.
That's the OG.
That's the OG.
And then from there, moved on to the Atari, and it just, I don't know, games just, I enjoyed the games, and they never left. My growing up, my friends would always like, hey, let's play football. Fine, all right, but then I always wound up going back inside playing games. I'd rather be playing games, but it was weird, man. It's still like all the way in the beginning, man. It just something resonated with me.
Was it the arcade? Was there like a home console game you played? Was there a specific moment you remember where it's like, oh, this is for me?
I was definitely an arcade kid, as I mentioned previous videos. I grew up in the arcade, lived in the arcade, and with the Atari 2600, that was the whole, play the arcade at home, and it just, I can't think of like a definitive thing that kind of just grabbed me. Maybe it was the Sega Genesis.
Okay.
Or the Master System that kind of hooked me, but I was already hooked, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it was just, it was like slowly engulfing you more and more over time.
Yeah, and then from there it went to the Genesis. From there it went from the Atari to the Master System.
I still can't believe you missed out on NES. I mean, I know you got one later on, but man,
you know what? It was like pick or choose. It was like either Nintendo or Sega, and Sega had like Altered Beast. It had Golden Axe, so it had titles that I was familiar with.
Because of the arcade, is that what made you lean towards Sega?
Towards Sega, exactly. I mean, Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, yeah, granted, they all came out on Atari. And I know Nintendo got them, but there were just certain titles that I really remember playing heavily in the arcade. And I think everybody played Altered Beast. Everybody played Golden Axe.
Unfortunately, we all played.
So
Altered Beast is fine. It's fine. It's a fine game.
It is. So I think that's what drew me to Sega over Nintendo. I mean, I eventually got a Nintendo, but it was like way later.
But it was like such like the NES. If you guys weren't alive then or you don't know, like it was a phenomenon when that thing came out, because there was a video game crash from Atari. Like there were, if they buried a bunch of ETs and like a bunch of stuff in the desert. That was real. Like that actually happened. The video game industry crashed, and everybody thought it was a fad. And then came along Nintendo. and everything changed.
Will it be you? Will your family be the first to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? Will you be the first to see, to touch, to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot? He follows the commands you put on screen to help you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley? The first to build a library of game packs like Kung Fu and Golf, even games like Excitebike that you program yourself. Will you be the first to get all this in one package? The Nintendo Entertainment System, where video technology is more than a game.
But you were a master. I didn't even know what a master system was until like I think I probably had a Dreamcast by the time I knew what a master system was.
Oh man,
Maybe later.
You know what it was? It was everybody had a Nintendo system, and I just had to be different. You know, for example, Pokemon Go. When I started playing Pokemon Go with my kids, everybody was like Team Yellow or Team Red or Team Blue. I went off the cuff and I said, you know what? Everybody's red or blue. I'm going to be yellow just because. So it was kind of like the same thing where everybody had Nintendo. So I got to be different, and I kind of went with Sega, like I said, because they had titles that I knew in the arcade. So that made it my decision a little easier.
That makes sense. I get that, trying to stand out, do something different, carve your own path. Back to the Pokemon thing that you just mentioned a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
When you buy Pokemon games, do you go out of your way to get the less popular color that's, or color or whatever their title is? Like, do you usually get the less popular one when they put those out?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Just because everybody usually goes for like one type or one color or one version.
They do. There's always a more popular one. And the weirdest thing I've ever seen was when Diamond and Pearl came out. Everybody was on board with Diamond, and I don't know what happened. Something happened, and it switched to Pearl, and I've never seen that before in my life. It was bizarre.
Yeah, because when Diamond and Pearl came out, I bought both, but everybody started with Diamond, so I started with Pearl.
Yeah,
just because
the pendulum swung. I don't know if like Nintendo put out a different video or something, but something made everybody initially want Diamond, and then everybody all of a sudden wanted a Pearl.
Switched to Pearl.
Which was probably brilliant marketing on their part. Whatever the hell they did, they probably like, oh, well, just going to buy both now. It's fine. Like, you're a perfect example. You bought both.
I bought both.
There you go.
So yeah, man. So that's pretty much it. You know, I've always had a passion for video games, and I was one that never got rid of my stuff. So it's just, my collection just kept building and building, and as I got older and started working and making my own money, I just kept buying more, and I made a lot of friends at the local electronics boutique where I eventually started working. I started as Christmas help. I was selling cars, and it was getting too much. We just had our first child, and I worked so much selling cars. It's like I missed his first steps and his first, words and stuff like that. It's like I blinked. He was born, I blinked, and he was like walking and talking. So I was I can't do that again. So I was buying more games at our electronics boutique, and just in conversation, because I've been dealing with them for the years, they asked me if I'd be interested in working for them. It's like, you're always here, and you're knowledgeable, your passion is there. How would you like to come work for us? And before, I would always say I couldn't because I was, selling cars. I just didn't have the time. And I was like, you know what? I was thinking about doing a career change, and it brought me on this Christmas help in October. And I was Christmas help. And then once Christmas season was over, they promoted me to assistant manager right then and there. And the rest is history. I stayed there, moved to South Jersey, became a store manager, and still playing video games. Just it's in my blood, man. And when I tried to leave, and come back. Everyone's like, it's in your blood. It's bound to happen. And I think they're right.
Now, when you say leave and come back, does that mean like when you started working the retro store?
Yeah, because I left. I find after 15 years, I left GameStop, and then some friends of ours, Greg and Sean,
Shout out
they
to them,
already
by the way. I don't know if they listen,
definitely,
but shout out to them. It's been a long time.
yeah, they left a while ago to do their own thing, and then they created Level Up Entertainment. And when I left GameStop, they always wanted me to come work for them, but I couldn't because of conflict of interest. And
Right.
but once I left, they were like, "Okay, now's your time. Here I am," and been with them ever since, and going on 14 years, 15 years with them.
Oh my God, has it been that long?
It's been that long.
Holy
It's
cow.
been that
I'm getting
long.
old, Wes. Thanks for reminding me.
you know, we're still going strong, and been with them ever since. They're great guys to work with. Everybody knew each other. Greg and Sean, Scott. Just people. We all knew each other. For either we're all of us worked at GameStop. Some of us worked together.
Yep.
Some of us came after, but the ones that came after always worked in the mall. So like everybody knew everybody. So it was great working with friends. And over the years, because I've known them for so long, because like I said, they all worked for me at some point or another at GameStop or EB. They decided to make me a part owner and cut me into the business and to show their appreciation. And like I said, I've been there ever since, man. I enjoy it. I enjoy comics. I enjoy anime. I enjoy video games, and it's stuff that we do at Level Up. It's great. It's great. It's like not work at all. it's
Hey, that's the best way to do it. If it
you
feels like
know
it's not work and get paid to do it, nothing better than that, right?
and it's fun. It's fun interacting with customers, talking about what we're passionate about, and it comes through, and people see that. Even when we were at GameStop, people saw our passion for games. That's why we were so successful in that store.
Yeah, I mean it was obviously things were different back then. We're talking about like, when so if you didn't know, Wes and I used to work together. Wes was my manager. I think I started out as your key holder or SGA,
Yeah,
which was a senior game advisor. And then eventually I became your assistant.
correct. Yep.
And so Wes was obviously a great leader and mentor. He showed and taught me a lot, and I appreciate everything he showed me over the years working together. But obviously, the people at Level Up, Sean, Greg, they knew Wes for a long time. They had to get him involved there, which makes perfect sense to me. I would be doing everything I could to get you to work there as well. So I totally understand that. But yeah, things were just different back then. It was, going back to what I said, like, the stores were very important, and there. I don't know if you guys remember this. It's kind of weird. People didn't hate us back then. People didn't hate GameStop back then for the most part. Like, you'd have some people like, yeah. And there was also like, I started off earlier, so did Wes. Obviously, there
Mhm.
was EB Electronics Boutique. Let's be
Correct.
clear, because I started at Electronics Boutique as well before
Yep.
EB Games was a thing. And
Yep.
there was Electronics Boutique, and there was Babbage's,
And
and for
software,
what
etc.
and Software Etc. And they were,
Yeah.
I think Babbage's first merged with Software Etc. Was that the first thing that
That.
happened?
Yep. That's what happened.
And then they switched all their names to Babbage's. Eventually, you didn't see any more Software Etc. You saw Babbage's and Electronics Boutique, because the mall I worked at originally had a Babbage's, and we hated them. We hated them because they were our competition. We never talked to anybody. I think our manager probably went over there and talked to them, but like, they were our competition at that point. And
Hmm.
eventually, those companies became one and became GameStop. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with any of that. If you guys have, I totally lost track of where I started and where I ended.
Okay, so what about you, man? Where did your journey begin? What's your once upon a time?
I mean, okay, so if we're talking about like where the passion came from first, it would have been uh, I started out in Atari. I probably mentioned that on here before. That was the first thing I played. I was probably like, I don't know, 2. I was really young, but I played like Frogger and
Mhm.
Pitfall. And I don't know that I played anything else because I think those were the only 2 games my aunt and uncle had at their house. Because it wasn't at my house, it was at their house. And then one Christmas, my sister got an NES, and it was her gift, but that console was mine. I mean, I was on there all the time. Like I was hooked. And just seeing Mario for the first time was like, oh my god! So I mean, that's where it initially started. Was the original Super Mario Brothers. You know, we had the one that came with Duck Hunt. It came with the
Mhm.
gun. Duck Hunt was fine. Mario was my thing though. And ebbs and flows happened. And what really brought me back to gaming to make sure I didn't like. I almost got out of gaming a few times. But the landmark moment was Super Mario 64, where it was like, oh, this is it, dude. There's no way I'm not doing this forever. I'm gonna do this till I die. And I mean, I love Mario 64 to this day. Still my favorite game of all time. Like I know it's not a perfect game. It doesn't matter. At the time, there was nothing better than it. You cannot point to a single 3D game that was better than that. It blew my mind. Nothing was like that. Mario 64 was what really set me off. That would have came out in like 1996, which would have been before I would have gotten a job there. But I knew I wanted to do something, with games. I didn't have any. I was young. I had no technical. I didn't know shit. Okay, I didn't. I wasn't great at math. Um, I was just starting to learn about computers and stuff, so I wasn't like coding or anything like that. I wasn't some genius. But there was game stores, and I wanted to work at a game store. So I went to. I called around to different places to see who was hiring. There was one place that was hiring. It wasn't even like the closest place. There was like 3 malls near my house, which was like Morristown, Cherry Hill, and Burlington. Burlington was probably the last place I wanted to go, but they were the ones that were hiring. And I had just gotten like my license, so I would have been 17.
Mhm.
And I was talking to the manager for like, weeks, bothering him like every day. Hey man, you're gonna hire me, right? You're gonna hire. It's like, yeah, once we start the interview. Eventually, he just like gave up. I broke him down because he was probably just sick of me calling him. But he knew I was passionate. He knew like, I didn't have a background with games. I did have other jobs before that, so I did have some stuff to put on there, which was good. I worked at I worked at McDonald's for a few weeks, which was horrible. But then I worked at like a bakery for a while, which was near my house. I didn't need to have a license for that, and those things helped me get the job and being passionate about it. So eventually, he hired me. I got the job, and I worked at Electronics Boutique. That's where it started. That would have been in like, God, if I was 17, it probably would have been around 2000 because PS2 came
Mm.
out. Yeah, it was probably right around 2000 would be
Mhm.
my assumption. I don't know the exact date, but there you have it.